Hi, my name is Christopher Johnson.
Meet you. Good to meet you, Christopher.
And I'm Aisha Davis.
Oh, good to meet you. Happy to see you.
Now we're on the set with our special guest, Congressman John Lewis. Congressman Lewis, it is indeed an honor and a privilege to meet and interview you. Thanks for being with us today. You have did so much during the height of the civil rights movement in the 60s and changed the world. You are still fighting for our rights today in the House of Representatives. Can you tell us what you think is your biggest accomplishment so far?
Well, thank you very much. I'm so happy and so delighted and really pleased to be with you today. I got involved in the civil rights movement because when I was growing up in rural Alabama many, many years ago, when I had all of my hair and when I was a few pounds lighter, I would go downtown to the little town of Troy or go to Montgomery with my brothers and sisters and my first cousin. We would go to the theater, and all of us little black children had to go up to the balcony, and all of the little white children went down to the first floor. I would ask my mother, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, why segregation? Why racial discrimination? And they would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way. Don't get in trouble. But when I was 15 years old in 1955 in the 10th grade, I heard about Rosa Parks. I heard Dr. King's voice on the old radio. And Dr. King inspired me to find a way to get in the way. I met him 3 years later in 1958 at the age of 18, and I became part of the civil rights movement. But I think my greatest accomplishment, something that I'm very proud of, when we led more than 600 black men and women across the bridge in Selma, Alabama. People couldn't register to vote. Black men and women teaching in our public schools. Black doctors, black lawyers, black teachers were told they could not read or write well enough. And we were beaten, we were arrested, we went to jail, but we changed things.
Now, let's watch Roland in About the Life of Congressman Lewis.
Hi, my name is Sydney. I'm 12 years old and I attend Salem Middle School. My question for you today is, were you scared when you participated in all those sit-ins and marches?
I must tell you, Sydney, I was not afraid. You come to that point where you lose all sense of fear. When I was sitting in, people would put lighted cigarettes out in our hair, down our backs, spit on us, pour hot water on us, hot coffee. But we didn't strike back because we believed in the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. I lost all sense of fear. I was prepared to die for what I believed in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Skylar Stevens, and I'm 12 years old, and I go to Chapel Hill Middle School. And my question is, when people were arrested for protesting, how did they get money to get out of jail?
Well, that's a very good question. When we were arrested for protesting and went to jail, there were organizations, individuals, business people, especially in the African American community, that made resources, made money available to get us out of jail. But sometimes we didn't want to come out of jail. We wanted to stay in. We wanted to fill up the jails in Birmingham, in Selma, in Montgomery, in Jackson, Mississippi, in Nashville, Tennessee, in Atlanta. So more and more people went to jail. Hundreds of thousands of children in Birmingham and in Selma, Alabama. And it created a mass movement. Because when the children got arrested and went to jail, the teachers became concerned, the parents and the grandparents, the uncles and aunts. So we had a mass movement to change things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tevin. I am 10 years old and I will be attending Cedar Grove Middle School. My question is, what do you like most about your job as a congressman?
I must tell you, that is a wonderful question because I do enjoy my job. It is a great job. You can live in Washington, D.C., but also you can live in Georgia. You meet unbelievable people, wonderful people, other members of Congress. But I come home every weekend and I visit my family, but I go to a grocery store, I go to a mall to shop, I cut my own lawn, I plant flowers, and it's a good feeling. But to think and believe that you're making a difference, The people in this district have been so good to me. They've been so wonderful. They all treat me like I'm their brother, their son or grandson, and I love them and they love me. You know, I've been elected to Congress 10 times, so every 2 years I'm elected, and I'm serving my 10th term. At the end of this year will be 19 years, but the end of this term will be 20 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nia Johnson, and I attend Shamley Middle School, and I am 12 years old. In 1998, you wrote your autobiography, Walking with the Wind. In the book, you often refer to the term beloved community. Can you explain to us what that means?
Thank you very much for asking that question. That is a very, very good question. What does this idea, this concept, the beloved community mean? When I went away to school in Nashville, I heard a young minister talking about the beloved community. It's an all-consuming community where we lay down the burden of hate. But we don't hate. We don't divide people because of their race, their religion, the color of their skin, or their height, or their sex. When someone beats you, when someone throws you in jail, when someone spit on you, you don't strike back. You love them anyway. So when we were being arrested and jailed, when we were being beaten, we didn't hate. We loved. Because all of us that come into this world, we call this planet Earth, we all live in the same world. And we all were innocent. We all were little children. We all were little babies. And something happened along the way. And that's why I believe in the idea of the beloved community, that hate is too heavy a burden to bear. So someone hit us on one side, we would turn the other side. Love is a better way. It is a more excellent way. It's better to love than to hate. It's better to love than to kill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Simone Moreland, and I am 11 years old, and I attend an undergraduate Christian academy. My question for you today is, who inspired you the most as a child?
When I was very, very young, I had a wonderful teacher. She taught me a great deal. And she would say, my child, read everything. In my home, we didn't have that many books. We had a few books. We didn't have a subscription to the local newspaper, but my grandfather had one. And when he would finish reading his newspaper each day, we would get his newspaper and read. I read everything that I could. And so when I was 15 in 1955, I heard about Rosa Parks. I heard about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I read everything that I could read about Dr. King, about Rosa Parks. I read about the outstanding Black American or African American in history. So my teachers, during my early years, my teachers inspired me. And I guess Martin Luther King Jr. and others inspired me a great deal, because if it hadn't been for Dr. King, I don't know where I would be.
Hello, my name is Corey Crosby. I'm 11 years old. I attend at Salem Middle School. My question for you today is, what was it like when you were a child?
It's a wonderful question. Thank you very much. When I was a child, growing up on that farm in rural Alabama, it was my responsibility to care for the chickens. I know none of you know anything about raising chickens. I had to raise chicken. I had to care for the chicken. And as a young child, when I was about 7 years old or 8 years old, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So one of my uncles had Santa Claus to bring me a Bible, and I learned to read the Bible. With the help of my brothers and sisters and my first cousins, from time to time, we would gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard, and we would have church. The chickens, along with my brothers and sisters and my first cousin, would make up the audience, and I would start preaching. And when I look back on it, some of these chickens would bow their heads. Some of these chickens would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to when I was a young child tended to listen to me much better than some of my colleagues listen to me today in the Congress. As a matter of fact, some of those chickens were a little more productive. At least they produce eggs.
Hello, my name is Alexandria Royster. I'm 12 years old and I attend Cedar Grove Middle School. My question for you today is, do you have any brothers or sisters?
Wonderful, wonderful. I have wonderful sisters. I have 3 sisters. I have 5 brothers, and we're very close, a very close family. In 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4. I remember when I was 4 years old. My father had saved $300, and with the $300, he bought 110 acres of land. And at an early age, my brothers and sisters, with my mother and father, we worked on the farm, hard work, picking cotton, gathering peanuts, pulling corn. And so when you work on the field, work on the farm, you become very close out in that hot sun. I didn't like it. That's why one of the reasons I left the farm when I was 17 years old and went to school in Nashville, Tennessee. Hadn't been for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and getting an education, I could still be down there on that farm working. But my brothers and my sisters, my mother and father, they all were very supportive, and we're one big family.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Sydney. I'm 12 years old and I attend Salem Middle School. My question is, what was your favorite thing to do as a child?
My favorite thing to do as a child was to listen. My mother used to accuse me of being nosy, and some of my brothers and sisters accused me of being nosy. But I wanted to know everything. I would ask a lot of questions. When someone would come and visit my mother and father, I would go in the next room and get as close to the door as I possibly could, and I would listen. I eavesdrop. And the moment my mother, aunt, I guess that would be my grandaunt, uncles would leave the house, I would ask questions. What was that all about? What were you all talking about? And I grew up calling my mother Mrs. Lewis. And once her aunt said to her, "Did he call you Mrs. Lewis?" And for years, I referred to my mother not as ma or mom or mother, but I called her Mrs. Lewis. Because when I was growing up, it was very difficult, almost impossible, hear people refer to black people as Mr. and Mrs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jamil Johnson. I'm 8 years old and I go to Clifton Magnet School. What was your favorite subject when you went to school and why?
My favorite subject when I went to school was history. I wanted to know. I guess that's come out of my sense of wanting to know what had happened, why it was happening. And we used to have something called Negro History Week in February. Now they call it African American History Month. And we had to get a magazine, say Ebony, a Jet, or the Afro-American newspaper, or the Pittsburgh Courier, and clip photographs of famous and well-known African Americans, like Booker T. Washington, the founder of Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University. People like Joe Louis, the boxer, George Washington Carver, the scientist. So I was very interested in knowing the history of Black American. And I took a great deal of interest in knowing about this history. And my first field trip, when I was very, very young in elementary school, was to visit the George Washington Carver Museum at Tuskegee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.